Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we really try to plunge into those critical reports and
And
research.
get behind the headlines, yeah.
Exactly, and give you, the clearest possible picture of what's actually happening now. Today, we're talking about AI.
Artificial intelligence, it's everywhere.
It really is transforming pretty much every industry you can think of. And maybe surprisingly for some, that includes the very vital world of central banking.
It does, and it's fascinating because these are institutions known for, well, meticulous processes, deep human expertise.
Right. Caution is sort of their watchword.
Precisely. But AI isn't just a buzzword for them. It's fundamentally reshaping how they operate at their core.
That's exactly why our mission today is to unpack this really comprehensive report. It's from the Bank for International Settlements, the BIS.
Right, their consultative group on risk management came out January 2025.
And it provides crucial guidance on managing the risks and, governing AI adoption in central banks. So we're going to uncover the benefits, which are sometimes surprising, the risks, which are often overlooked, I think, and the practical steps these banks are actually taking. The goal is you walk away feeling truly well informed.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's dive in then. Why are central banks, these, as we said, bastions of stability, so eager to embrace AI? I mean, when we say AI, what exactly are we talking about here?
Well, the report helpfully starts with the OECD definition, which is pretty widely used. Essentially, an AI system is a machine. It infers from input
Okay.
to generate things like predictions, content, recommendations, or decisions, and these influence physical or virtual environments.
And they can operate on their own to some extent.
Exactly. Crucially, they vary a lot in their autonomy and how much they adapt after they're, deployed.
So it's not just one monolithic AI, it's a whole toolkit, really. I guess listeners know machine learning, maybe deep learning,
Yeah.
but what else are central banks looking at?
Yeah, beyond ML, which learns from data patterns, and deep learning with its neural networks, they're really delving into generative AI, GAI.
The stuff that creates original content.
Right, from
Yeah.
prompts. And then there's natural language processing, NLP, and large language models, LLMs.
Yeah.
The tech behind things like GPTs,
For understanding language.
vital for understanding and generating
Yeah.
human language, yeah.
Yeah.
But the key isn't just what they are, it's what they do for these central banks.
Right. So beyond the tech terms, what are the real tangible benefits? Why are these traditionally conservative institutions saying, yes, we need this?
I think the biggest driver is probably automation of business processes.
Just handling the sheer volume.
Exactly. For institutions managing just immense amounts of data, complex workflows, AI optimizes resource use. It boosts productivity, sometimes significantly.
Makes sense.
They're also using AI for really swift analysis of massive data sets. This improves decision-making from policy right down to, daily operations.
In finding things humans might miss.
That's maybe the most powerful part. Solving complex problems by identifying patterns in vast data that even the best human analyst might just not see. It fosters innovation across all their different functions.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. For organizations dealing with the global economy, scale, speed, insight, those are everything. Let's get specific, though. Where are we actually seeing AI put to work right now in central banks?
Well, starting with the big picture, economic analysis, forecasting, and policy. They're using machine learning for things like GDP, forecasting current GDP, and inflation forecasting.
Hasn't ML been used for that for a while in some places?
It has, yeah, but the sophistication is really jumping forward now. More uniquely, maybe, is using NLP and LLMs for textual analysis.
Analyzing text? Like what?
Everything from financial news, official reports, even social media feeds, or even doing sentiment analysis on their own publications.
To see how they're being received. Interesting.
Exactly, how their communications land. It's a big shift from, just traditional econometric models.
I can imagine. Okay, what about payment systems? That's absolutely critical infrastructure.
Hugely critical. AI is being used there to detect abnormal transactions, strengthening the systems against fraud.
Finding needles in haystacks.
Pretty much. There was Project Aurora, a BIS innovation hub project that used ML to detect money laundering networks. And it was far more effective than the traditional, often rules-based methods.
Wow. Spotting those complex networks?
Almost instantly, across vast amounts of transaction data. It's a powerful tool against financial crime.
And regulation, supervision. Another area just drowning in data, I'd assume.
Absolutely. They're using NLP, for instance, to calculate the complexity of banking regulations, helps them understand the burden,
That's clever.
and analyzing the impact of new laws or rules by web scraping and classifying information for timely alerts. For supervisors on the ground, ML, NLP, GAI, they're extracting insights, monitoring banks for credit risks, exposures.
Giving them a clearer, faster picture of financial health.
That's the goal.
Okay, slightly different angle.
Huh.
What about something really tangible, like printing money, banknote production? Is AI even there?
It is, actually. Deep learning is enhancing efficiency and quality control in the printing operations. Better quality currency. And AI helps forecast cash flow needs, plan production schedules, distribution for banknotes and coins, optimizing the logistics for an entire country's cash.
That's quite a range. And I guess anomaly detection and risk assessment must be huge areas given the need to spot weird things in markets.
Oh, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
AI is analyzing massive data sets to find unusual patterns. This improves data quality by flagging incorrect reports, anomalies in price data, weird account balances.
Cleaning up the data.
Right. And Project Raven, another BIS Innovation Hub project, is using AI to assess cybersecurity maturity in the financial sector
Proactive defense.
and identifying early signs of potential risks, even financial crises, by looking across diverse data sources. They're also generating synthetic data.
Fake data.
Yeah, but realistic fake data. For stress testing, enhancing simulations without using real sensitive information. The aha moment here, I think, is AI moving beyond just spotting known threats.
To finding unknown ones.
Exactly. Finding emerging or unknown risks based on really subtle shifts in data patterns. It's becoming more predictive.
So not just reactive, but proactive too. Okay, last area. What about inside the central bank? Internal operations, customer service.
Yeah, this is where LLMs are really shining for internal efficiency, summarizing complex documents, helping with coding.
Coding support.
Yeah, drafting internal reports, analyzing FAQs. A lot of central banks are rolling out AI chatbots for public inquiries, or even for staff asking HR or policy questions.
Freeing up people for more complex work.
That's the idea. AI is also enhancing code development, database management. Some are even exploring it for sentiment analysis on their own stuff, like we said, or producing official speeches with a consistent tone.
Keeping the institutional voice consistent.
Right. Document translation, grammar checks, leveraging the tech for consistency and clarity across the board.
Okay, so the promise is clearly immense. It really sounds like AI is touching almost every part of a central bank's work, making them more efficient, insightful, secure.
It definitely has that potential.
But
Yeah.
you knew there was a but coming. With great power comes, well, a whole new set of risks and potential headaches, right?
Precisely. That's the other side of the coin. While AI is incredibly powerful, it absolutely introduces new vulnerabilities, and it can seriously amplify existing risks.
And the report makes that clear.
Very clear. It states that the level of risk is fundamentally tied to the access and processing of data. And central banks handle incredibly sensitive data.
So it's not just the tech, it's the tech interacting with that critical information. Can you walk us through some of the specific high-impact risks the report flags? What are central banks really grappling with?
Of course, the report lays out a pretty clear taxonomy. First up is strategic risk.
Okay, what does that entail?
Basically, if there isn't a clear AI strategy, applications might get developed that don't align with the bank's core mission or mandate. Or worse, they produce outputs that damage the bank's reputation.
Like how?
Well, imagine a generative AI system creating misleading information, maybe about policy, that goes out uncorrected. For an institution built on public trust, that's a huge problem.
A massive one. Okay, what's next? Operational risk. That sounds broad.
It is broad. It covers things like legal uncertainty. Maybe AI outputs accidentally violate copyright, or who even owns the IP of AI-generated content isn't clear.
Tricky legal ground.
Very. Then there are big compliance challenges. The infamous black box problem.
Where you can't explain how the AI reached a decision.
Exactly. And if you can't explain it, how do you justify it? Especially for audit trails, public accountability.
Yeah.
It's vital. We also see people risks.
Like staff skills?
Yeah, inadequate digital skills, or maybe becoming too reliant on third-party AI providers, which increases risks around data misuse or losing internal control.
That raises a huge point. If you can't fully explain the why behind an AI decision, how do you defend it, especially if it impacts markets or policy? And that brings us to information security, privacy, cybersecurity. Sounds like a minefield.
It really is. GII outputs could contain confidential data, risking breaches or privacy violations. Think about users putting sensitive info into prompts.
And that info gets stored, used for training, potentially leaked. Yikes.
Exactly. AI also creates scary new ways for cyber attacks. Things like prompt injection, embedding malicious code in user inputs, or training data poisoning.
Messing with the data the AI learns from.
Right, so it learns the wrong things, maybe builds in backdoors. Then there's model denial of service, even outright model theft.
And AI helping the attackers themselves.
That's maybe the most worrying. AI enabling much more sophisticated scams, fraud, deepfakes.
Deepfakes?
The report specifically mentions incidents of deepfakes using images of central bank governors. Imagine the potential to undermine trust there.
Wow, that's a direct attack on institutional credibility.
And AI can boost attackers' abilities, finding system vulnerabilities, writing exploit code for hacking, malware, phishing. It makes bad actors more effective.
Okay, sobering stuff. What about third-party risk? You mentioned reliance on external providers. Most banks won't build all this AI themselves, right?
That's right. So there are big implications. Concentration risk is one. What if a single critical AI supplier fails?
Everything grinds to a halt.
Potentially. Or inflexibility. Maybe the central bank can't modify a third-party tool to meet its specific evolving needs. They get locked in.
Vendor lock-in, yeah. Okay, and then the core of it, AI model risk. This feels absolutely critical given how much rides on central bank decisions.
It is critical, and it breaks down a bit. First, interpretation and reliability issues. You can get imprecise results just from poor data quality, bad prompting.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Essentially. Or biases baked into the training data leading to skewed, unfair, or unreliable outcomes. Then you have hallucinations.
Where the AI just makes stuff up.
Perceives patterns that aren't actually there, Or apophenia, seeing connections, or causality where there's none, just because it's processing so much data.
So it could confidently predict a crisis based on noise.
That's the risk. GAI can also have repeatability issues, give you similar prompts, get different answers. But what's really concerning is the potential for overconfidence in the AI output.
People trust it too much.
Yes, and that can weaken crucial human due diligence. The machine sounds so sure of itself.
Even when it's confidently wrong. What about transparency and accountability within the models?
That's a fundamental challenge. Often, there's a lack of public, sometimes even internal, knowledge about how complex models are programmed, and some algorithms can even self-modify.
Change themselves.
Leading to unintended outcomes that are incredibly hard to trace or explain.
Yeah.
Connect that to the need for public accountability. It's a real tension.
I can see that. Okay, beyond the direct tech risks, what other broader, maybe more subtle issues does the report mention?
It flags several important ones. Often, there's an underestimation of just how complex AI training, deployment, and especially integration with old legacy systems can be.
Leads to delays, cost blowouts.
Right. And the tech evolves so fast, making precise project management tough. There's pressure to adopt quickly, which can mean rushed implementations, missed safeguards.
Move fast and break things. Not ideal for a central bank.
Not at all. Then there's the environmental impact. The sheer energy and computing power needed, especially for GAI and LLMs, affects the carbon footprint and infrastructure.
A hidden cost.
And it can create new dependencies, significant ongoing costs, if these AI models become embedded in core processes.
Okay, that's a lot to think about. Let's bring it back to the real world for a second. You mentioned GAI risks. We're seeing a surge in incidents globally, aren't we?
We are. The data is quite stark. The OECD tracked GAI risks and incidents. They grew exponentially between late 2022 and September 2024.
Exponentially.
Peaking at 730 incidents reported in just 1 month, June 2024. That kind of rapid increase inevitably leads to regulatory responses.
Like the EU AI Act.
Exactly. That came into force August 1st, 2024, full application by August 2026. It classifies AI by risk level, sets out obligations. It's a clear sign the world is waking up to these specific risks.
Okay, so risks are real, growing, regulators are reacting. But central banks can't just ignore AI's potential. They need stability, but also innovation. So how do they build trust? How are they actually managing these risks? What are the strategies?
They're taking a holistic approach. And what's really interesting, I think, is they're not trying to invent a whole new rule book from scratch.
No.
They're diligently adapting their existing, very robust risk management frameworks honed over decades, adapting them to the unique challenges AI poses.
That makes a lot of sense. Leverage what works. So they're using established models like the 3 lines of defense, 3 LOD. That's common in finance.
Exactly. The 3 LOD me model is being specifically adapted to clarify AI roles and responsibilities. The first line is key here.
Who's that? The team's actually using the AI.
Right. They directly own and manage AI risks. They identify suitable use cases, perform AI-specific technical checks, robustness testing, validating training data, checking for bias.
The hands-on technical stuff.
Yes, and continuous monitoring for issues like performance drift, security problems. Data drift is a big one. They also deliver specialized training. Their job is to catch issues right at the source.
Okay, so the people closest to the tools handle immediate risks. What about the second line? That's the oversight layer.
Precisely. The second line provides that crucial oversight and support. They make sure AI use fits within the bank's defined risk appetite. They develop the risk methodology for AI.
The rules of the game.
Sort of, yeah. They create AI-specific policies, guidelines defining what's permitted, what's absolutely prohibited. They ensure compliance, uphold ethical principles.
Making sure everyone plays by the rules. And the third line, that sounds like internal audit.
That's right, independent assurance. They come in and do technical and ethical audits, evaluate security controls, fairness, transparency. They provide ongoing review of the AI controls and policies themselves, making sure they stay effective as the tech changes so fast.
So it's a layered defense, catch things that might slip through.
Exactly, designed to provide multiple checks.
Okay, beyond the 3 large D structure, what other big picture strategies are crucial for managing AI risk in central banks?
One absolutely fundamental step is defining the AI risk profile. Top management has to decide the bank's appetite for AI risks. That guides everything.
Like, how much risk are we willing to take on?
Exactly. For instance, they might say, initially, we only use AI internally on non-critical stuff until we really understand and control the risks. Then maybe later deploy it to something market-facing.
Start small, scale responsibly.
Right. Then there's structured AI project evaluation, having a multidisciplinary team look at any proposed AI use case, classify its risk level, does it touch sensitive data, is it feasible, and then design and implement countermeasures before deployment.
Avoids risky ad hoc projects popping up.
Hopefully, yes. Another critical one, protecting information throughout the AI lifecycle.
Data security again?
Paramount. Given the data central banks handle, confidentiality, integrity, availability, privacy, it has to be baked in.
Yeah.
And resilience, too, being able to recover quickly if something does go wrong.
And managing those third parties.
Absolutely essential. Robust third-party risk management. Thorough due diligence before signing any contract, careful negotiation, really understanding the data quality, who owns what, the level of human oversight in the vendor's model. You just can't outsource accountability. Makes sense. Okay, that's the foundation. Now let's talk about generative AI specifically. Given its unique power and risks, what specific actions are banks taking to mitigate GAI issues? The report highlights several key actions here. Under strategic controls, they're setting up dedicated committees, often interdisciplinary. Formal approval processes are key, with very clear roles defined for any GAI project.
Gatekeeping, essentially.
And defining specific GAI requirements in policies, including, crucially, prohibited practices.
Like what? What can't they do?
Things like publishing AI-generated documents without thorough human review. Using sensitive internal info to train public models, that's a huge no-no. Or allowing GAI to modify its own algorithms without explicit human oversight. Setting clear red lines.
Right, preventing the AI from going truly rogue or leaking secrets. What about cybersecurity measures for GAI?
Under cybersecurity measures, they're actively looking for shadow AI.
Staff using unapproved AI tools.
Yeah, that's a big vulnerability, so identifying that. Limiting access, maybe just only allowing locally installed AI tools, blocking public to online models for high-risk tasks, using separate networks or sandboxes for testing.
Maintaining the potential blast radius.
And filtering sensitive or inappropriate info from GAI outputs is also key, plus robust security around the AI models themselves.
And what about the human element in all this? It sounds like that's still the ultimate safety net.
It absolutely is. Human supervision and education are central. The report stresses that AI outputs must be treated as drafts. They need expert human review, discussion.
Because they can look convincing even when wrong.
Exactly. They can seem accurate, authoritative, even when they're flawed or just fabricated. So training employees rigorously on the risks, the limitations, and also how to prompt effectively to get better, safer results.
Smart prompting matters.
Huge difference. And finally, transparency. Implementing practices to clearly disclose and label when work or processes are AI generated. Builds public trust.
Okay, so it's this constant loop. Human oversight, training, clear labeling. This all seems to feed into that bigger idea of trustworthy AI.
It does, absolutely. Central banks are building on existing industry frameworks, try to balance all those key principles, secure AI, data privacy compliant, explainable, transparent, reliable, ethical, responsible, accountable. It's a long list,
Balancing act.
and it requires adaptive governance. AI changes so fast, the governance can't be static. It needs to be dynamic, flexible, responsive, built on principles the report calls control, agility, and autonomy.
Always evolving.
All right.
Okay, for our listeners who want the bottom line, the practical steps. The CGRM report lays out 10 specific actions for central banks. Can you give us the highlights from that list?
Sure. These are really concrete, actionable takeaways from the report's guidance. You can group them logically.
Okay.
First, it's about setting up the right structure. Establish that interdisciplinary AI committee. Define clear principles for responsible AI use. That sets the foundation.
Get the organization and philosophy right.
Then, get your house in order. Establish a proper AI framework. Update existing guidance to include AI, and critically, maintain a detailed inventory of all AI tools being used. You need to know what you have.
Know what's under the hood.
The next set is about active management and monitoring. Map AI tools to the teams using them. Perform detailed risk assessments, legal, cyber, operational, and then regular monitoring.
Checking for.
Things like data drift, performance degradation, fairness, bias creeping in, and have a clear process to report any anomalies or incidents.
Continuous vigilance.
And finally, it's about people and adaptability. Develop workforce skills, basic awareness for everyone, specialist training for key teams, and crucially, perform ongoing reviews and adaptations of the entire framework.
Because the tech won't stand still.
Exactly. AI is a moving target, so governance has to keep pace.
That sounds like a really solid, practical roadmap for navigating this complex space. So, wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you listening? Our deep dive into this BIS report really shows AI offers central banks, well, immense transformative potential, huge opportunities for efficiency, insight.
Right, across all their critical functions, forecasting economies, fighting financial crime, even printing money more efficiently.
But, and it's a big but, this potential comes with significant evolving risks. We talked about the black box problem, data privacy nightmares, even AI-powered deepfakes hitting institutional credibility.
Yeah, the risks are serious. The core takeaway, though, I think, is that central banks aren't starting from zero. Their main approach is to diligently adapt and strengthen those existing robust risk management and governance frameworks they already have.
Applying tried and tested principles to new tech.
Exactly. Leveraging things like the 3 lines of defense model and always prioritizing human oversight and judgment.
It really is a delicate, continuous balancing act then. Fostering innovation while rigorously guarding against the downsides of a technology that's still changing incredibly fast.
That is the challenge.
Which leads us to a final thought for you to consider. As AI continues to evolve at this breakneck speed, how might the very definition of human oversight within these critical financial institutions need to adapt? How do we ensure that innovation doesn't outpace our ability to truly understand and manage the intelligent machines we build?